The Prenatal-to-3 State Policy Roadmap is a tool for state policy leaders to help them make informed decisions regarding the most effective policies and strategies that strengthen the prenatal-to-3 system of care. The roadmap is guided by the science of the developing child, it's rooted in rigorous policy research, and we are committed to using it to promote equity. Although the science is clear, children need loving, warm, stimulating, and safe environments with limited exposure to adversity. The solutions have not been clear, and states have lacked guidance on where to begin to make the impact that they desire. We developed a 4-step framework to guide our work and that allows states to use this roadmap to prioritize their prenatal-to-3 policy goals, to adopt and implement the most effective policies that impact these goals, and to monitor progress toward policy implementation and the reach of the policy, and to measure outcomes to determine the overall health and well-being of the infants, toddlers, and parents in your state. Our 8 prenatal-to-3 policy goals are informed by the science of the developing child, which shows that our supports for children and families need to be broad, and they need to ensure that children are born healthy to healthy parents, that parents have the skills and resources they need to be the parents that they aspire to be and that their children deserve, and that when children are not with their parents, that they're in high-quality, nurturing, safe care environments. Therefore, our 8 policy goals focus on mental and physical health, economic security, nurturing relationships, and identifying any needs early and connecting children and families with the services that can help them. We're trying to build a system of care to support the health and well-being of our children and families. We conducted comprehensive reviews of rigorous research, and we identified 11 solutions that strengthen this prenatal-to-3 system of care. Although we recognize that we need to continue to build the evidence base and learn more, we identified the 5 most effective policies and 6 strategies that have the strongest evidence base to date of impacting our prenatal-to-3 policy goals. The 5 policies foster the health and economic resources that families need to help their children thrive. The policies focus on ensuring children and families have access to the services that they need and that they're eligible for, such as health care and food stamps. And the policies ensure that work pays and that it allows parents to balance providing for and caring for their children. Although we will continue to learn more about the most effective aspects of the policies and the most efficient ways to implement these policies, the research on the state-level policies provide us with clear guidance as to what states need to do in order to see the impacts that we see in rigorous studies. For example, the research shows that paid family leave programs must provide a minimum of 6 weeks of paid leave to be effective, and a state earned income tax credit must be refundable and at least 10% of the federal EITC to generate a positive impact on employment and health outcomes. Turning to the 6 effective strategies, we find that they play an essential role in creating a robust system of care. We call an effective solution a strategy rather than a policy when the evidence demonstrates that the program or approach positively impacts at least one prenatal-to-3 policy goal, but the evidence does not provide clear guidance to states as to exactly what they should do to replicate the impacts that we see in the research. For example, rigorous causal studies show that group prenatal care is an effective program to improve birth outcomes and to build social support among pregnant moms. Many states are implementing group prenatal care programs, but they're doing so in a wide variety of ways. States that have the most robust programs are providing an enhanced reimbursement for group prenatal care through Medicaid, whereas other states mention on their websites that the approach is something that folks should try, but they do not provide a financial incentive for it. Similarly, all states are providing evidence-based home visiting programs, but some states supplement federal dollars with state funding to a level that allows the state to serve a substantial number of eligible children, whereas other states only use federal dollars and they serve very few eligible children. Over time, our goal is to learn and to share with you what the optimal investments are that states should make to reap the benefits of the programs at a statewide level. But at this time, for strategies, we measure states' progress relative to one another or external recommendations rather than a clear policy directive. Again, as the evidence base grows and we learn more about the innovative policies and programs that states are implementing, we will add to this list of effective solutions. We will also learn much more about policy implementation and the aspects of policies that should be considered or replicated to make the policy more effective and equitable. But this roadmap provides an important guide for states of where to begin. This roadmap chart will allow states to see which policies and strategies impact their prenatal-to-3 policy goals. Each column is a policy goal, and the colored circles within the column denotes whether that policy or strategy impacts that goal. As you can see, some goals are impacted by numerous policies, for example, sufficient household resources. And some policies or strategies impact numerous prenatal-to-3 policy goals, for example, paid family leave. And this chart allows for a quick glance at where states might want to begin based on what they have already done and the goals that they have. In each state's roadmap, which are available on our website at pn3policy.org, you'll see that if the state has fully implemented the policy or strategy, we put a check mark in the circle. And states should work to having check marks in all of these circles to really build a robust prenatal-to-3 system of care. And many states are making progress toward building this strong system of care for their infants and toddlers and parents. And other states have a long way to go. 3 states have fully implemented all 5 of the effective policies. However, no state has made substantial progress toward implementing all of the effective strategies. 3 states have not implemented any of the effective solutions. What this means is that children with similar needs have access to very different services based on the lottery of where they were born. And these differences in services will be reflected in differences in long-term health and well-being and economic prosperity within the state. But we all know that policy adoption is a long game and that it typically does not happen quickly. States will often discuss a policy for several sessions before enacting it, and states will make enhancements to their policies or cuts over time. For this reason, we're tracking states' progress toward adopting and fully implementing each of the 5 policies and making substantial progress relative to other states toward implementing the effective strategies. Importantly, we only count states as a yes if the families in their state can receive the benefits. So, for example, Missouri and Oklahoma recently expanded Medicaid, but they've not yet implemented. So therefore, they are a 6 or showing some progress on this barometer rather than a yes. But once the policy is fully implemented, their score will increase. Similarly, 9 states have passed a bill to create a paid family leave program, but in only 5 states can parents currently take at least 6 weeks of paid leave. We also only consider a state to be a yes if their policy benefits are as generous as the research says is necessary to impact the prenatal-to-3 outcomes. For example, 30 states have a minimum wage that is actually higher than the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. But only 19 states currently have a minimum wage that is at least $10 per hour, which is the minimum level necessary to see the potential impacts on earnings, health, and well-being. Similarly, 29 states have a state earned income tax credit, but only 18 states have one that is refundable and at least 10% of the federal EITC. Even if a state is a yes on a given policy or strategy, they may still have more to do to ensure that eligible families actually receive the benefits the policy provides. I won't lie, the state policy roadmap is long. It's over 300 pages. But although it is very fun reading, we don't expect that all folks will sit down and read it cover to cover. The executive summary provides an excellent overview of the findings, and the report itself is a collection of goal and policy profiles for quick reference based on your particular policy areas of interest. For example, each of the 8 prenatal-to-3 policy goals has its own profile that's approximately 10 pages. And most of those pages are full of maps and graphics, as well as cute babies. In each goal profile, we address, why is this goal important? How are states doing toward meeting the goal? Which of the 11 effective policies and strategies impact that goal? And we describe the other policies or approaches that states are pursuing that will help us to build the evidence base. This is an example of the goal of sufficient household resources. Sufficient resources are necessary to reduce child poverty and to ensure that children have housing and food insecurity. A lack of resources can lead to extreme stress for the parents, which has long-lasting negative consequences for child development. We use 3 outcome measures to indicate how well families are doing relative to this goal in each state. We look at the percent of children under age 3 who are living in poverty. We look at these children who are living in crowded housing, and the percent of households with a child under age 3 who is food insecure. Each outcome is intentionally measured in the negative direction to help states understand where they're lagging and where they need to support their families. We also rank each state, including DC, from first, which is the best, to 51st, which is the worst, on each of the outcomes in our report. And although a particular ranking score is not that meaningful, for example, the difference between being ranked 36 or 38 is negligible, states can determine if they are leaders or laggards on each outcome relative to other states. For each outcome, we demonstrate the 5 best states and the 5 worst states to determine how large the range in outcomes is across our country. Using this example of food insecurity, you can see that virtually no households with very young children report that the children do not have adequate food in Kansas and South Carolina, whereas 1 out of 8 households with infants and toddlers report child food insecurity in New Mexico. The differences across race and ethnic groups are also startling. Approximately 7% of all households with children under age 3 report food insecurity, but infants and toddlers in Black families are 3 times as likely to be food insecure as in white families, and infants and toddlers in Hispanic families are twice as likely as white families. For each outcome, we also show the variation across all states and indicate the state's rank. Again, it's more important to consider which quintile your state is in rather than any particular rank to help you to understand if this is an area that you need to address. Recall that these numbers are from data that predate the COVID crisis, and all recent poll studies point to families struggling even more today than prior to the crisis. And it will be important to understand which state policies enabled families to weather the crisis more than others. For each Prenatal-to-3 policy goal, we also illustrate which policies and strategies impact that goal. As you can see, all 5 of the effective policies increase household resources, as well as 1 strategy, child care subsidies. These impact tables show the potential impact that each policy and strategy can have on that goal. And we pay particular attention to the impact the policy or strategy can have on reducing disparities. For more detail on the impact of the policy or strategy on each goal, you can read our complete summaries in our Prenatal-to-3 Policy Clearinghouse at pn3policy.org. In the roadmap, we also provide a profile on each effective policy and strategy, and that is a summary of the information from the Policy Clearinghouse. For each policy or strategy, we discuss what it is, why is it important, what impact does it have on Prenatal-to-3 outcomes, what do we still need to learn about it, and what progress are states making toward implementing the policy or strategy. This is an example using the state earned income tax credit. This summary shows the goals that the policy impacts, a summary of its effects, and the number of states who have fully implemented the policy at a level the research says is necessary to achieve these impacts. In this case, a refundable credit that's at least 10% of the federal EITC. This impact table shows the potential impact that a state EITC can have on each of the PN3 policy goals. What's interesting is that a state EITC has a substantial impact on reducing disparities in adverse birth outcomes, an even larger impact than some programs that are directly targeted at birth outcomes. We are also tracking states' progress toward implementing each policy, and as you can see, there's wide variation in policy adoption of this policy. 18 states have implemented a refundable state EITC that's at least 10% of the federal EITC, but 29 states have some form of a state EITC, An additional 3 states have their own version of a tax credit that's similar to a non-refundable EITC. There's also considerable variation across states in the generosity of their EITC benefits. Among states that offer refundable EITC, it ranges from 3% of the federal EITC in Montana to up to 85% in California. And for each policy and strategy, we're not only tracking progress toward adoption and the generosity of the benefit level, but also its reach. If you build it and they don't come, then the policy is not as effective as it could be. The data are not always available on the number of eligible families who receive a specific benefit, so we had to use proxies sometimes. And that is what we had to do for the state EITC. We don't know the percent of families who were eligible for the state EITC who filed for the tax credit, so we used the filing for the federal EITC as a proxy. It'd be difficult to receive your state EITC, which is a percentage of your federal EITC, if you didn't file for your federal tax credit. But this variation across states will help states to really understand the number of families who are eligible to reap the benefits of a state policy, but who are not currently receiving it. The roadmap has a wealth of information on policies, progress toward implementation, and outcomes. And it's designed to be a useful tool for states as you prioritize your goals and determine which policies and strategies to pursue. In addition to the full state policy roadmap, we created a unique roadmap for each state, including DC. And the state roadmap provides specific information on the policies and strategies that your state has implemented, your progress toward policy implementation, the generosity of your benefits, and the reach of the benefits among those who are eligible. We also show how your state is doing on each of the 20 outcome measures that are aligned with the Prenatal-to-3 policy goals. For example, this is Minnesota's roadmap. It shows that they have fully implemented 4 out of the 5 effective policies and 2 out of 6 effective strategies, but they've also made progress on some of the others. For each of the 11 solutions, we highlight how much progress the state has made toward adopting and fully implementing the policy, and how generous each state's benefits are relative to other states. In this example, we see that Minnesota has adopted and fully implemented the Medicaid expansion as defined in the Affordable Care Act, and Minnesota sets its Medicaid income eligibility for parents at 138% of the federal poverty level. And we also see that just under 10% of low-income women of childbearing age lack health insurance in their state, which places them near the top of states on this indicator. We also show how each state is doing on the 20 outcome measures related to the PN3 policy goals. This graph shows that in many areas, children and families are faring well in Minnesota, but there are also areas in which Minnesota should focus. For example, Minnesota ranks near the bottom in the percent of eligible families with children under age 18 who actually receive the SNAP benefits that they are eligible for, and in the percent of children who are not fully immunized by age 3. Each state can review their outcomes as they're aligned to the policy goals, and they can ask if they're lagging in one, have we adopted and fully implemented the effective policies or strategies that actually impact this goal? What progress have we made toward policy adoption? Are our benefits generous enough to lead to the policy impacts? Are all the families who are eligible for this benefit receiving it? And are we reducing disparities in outcomes? The Prenatal-to-3 State Policy Roadmap is designed to provide states with the information they need to answer these questions, also to prioritize their policy goals and measure the impact that the policies have on infants, toddlers, and parents in their state over time. We encourage you to visit our website at pn3policy.org to download the complete roadmap, as well as your state's roadmap, and to get more information. Our state data interactives are in development, but there is already a lot there for you to see and much more to come. And we are also here to answer your questions. We're not advocates, and we won't tell you what your state should do, but if you share our goals of ensuring that children get off to a healthy start and thrive, then we will provide the evidence of what we know today on how to achieve those goals. Previously, states didn't have clear guidance on where to begin, and we will continue to learn, but this roadmap is a good place to start, and we hope it will be a useful tool for your state.